So my name is Michael French. I had chapter 15, questioning the communists of Death on the Nile. The entire scene is of Perot analyzing like the possible motives that these different people on the boat have for killing Lynette. And so I opened the scene with like a spotlight on James Ferguson. And I kind of gave all my characters kind of like a general like generic kind of body, and so for him I made his like a tie, just because he wore a tie a lot. And so this is kind of like my first concept of, I'm just going to have him kill Lynette, because that seemed really easy. And so I decided that I wanted her to lay down again, just kind of get that close range. And I felt like she needed a bed, and I made the bed purple because Lynette is kind of an image of like power and royalty in a way, and so I wanted to convey that. And like I also wanted to hint at James's like communist background, and the color communism is red, and so I showed that through his shadow and his tie. And then I thought it made more sense to make Lynette herself purple and not what she was laying on, and so that's my final for the first scene in a way. And next I had Rosalie Otterborn, and I made her red because I used in the outline because I felt it made sense to connect her with James, just because they had that close connection throughout the movie. And the possible motive for her to kill was she wanted to protect her mother, who Lynette was going to sue, and she wanted to save her from damages. And so I added Lynette and the gun in there, and I thought, well, this looks very similar to what I just did in the previous scene. And so I decided to like kind of make it into a window of what was going on with Lynette, but still like keep Salome in there. And so then I decided I didn't really like the thinking process, and so I just wanted to like have the circle to connect it, and then I still wanted to show like the murder in the other scene, and I made the background purple because purple can also be used to not only convey like that royalty, but also kind of like a sense of mystery. And so I felt like that was kind of fitting because they were trying to solve the mystery of like who killed her. Next I had Miss Bowers, Miss Van Schuyler's servant. And I kind of kept hers kind of simple black and white kind of theme. And then, so her possible motive was that Lynette's dad fired Miss Bowers' dad, and so she wanted to get revenge on just like the family in general. And so I kept with like the theme of the Lynette's family being purple, just because that just makes them stick out more. And so I have this going on, and that's her dad getting fired. And then I thought, okay, I need to have Lynette in there just because I wanted to tie the dad to Lynette. And then I also made Miss Bowers outline purple, just to show, like, yeah, she's black and white to go with her dad, but she's also partly with Lynette right now because that's who she's going against, and she's in servitude because of Lynette's family. And so then I decided I didn't really want Lynette to be living and standing up, so I just made her down. And then I actually had a fourth scene in mind where Jackie comes in at the very end of it, and Jackie is like, and I thought this was the key thing because Perot basically says, oh, it has been confirmed that you're like so drugged that you could not have done this. And so I was trying to figure out how to do that. And Jackie is really an unbalanced character, and so I made her have like an unstable bottom, which is why she doesn't have like the plain hourglass like everyone else has for women. And so I decided I wanted to do 2 windows and have Lynette sleeping. And so I kind of thought, oh, I'll just do them both in a bed and kind of play with that and added more room details. And then I decided that really looks pretty boring, and so I wanted to make Jackie more prominent, and so I made her window like a lot larger and brought her up in the front, just kind of more in the foreground. And I decided, okay, well, I want to convey that the murder is already going on, and so I have that on the end. And I decided I wanted to convey more that she was asleep, and so I actually like closed her eyes more. And so this is my final 1, final 2, final 3, and final 4.
Try making them just a tag and try that slider down at the bottom there.
How do I do that? Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's okay, you can
Okay.
give me a little bigger, it's kind of hard to see them.
Yeah. Any questions?
I don't necessarily have a question rather
Okay.
than a comment.
Yeah.
Even though we were supposed to do 3, I think it's probably very important that you did do the 4, just because, I mean, the whole entire movie is about ruling out all the passengers of the ship. So it was important for you to include all 3 prior to Jackie. And also, your development of your 4th scene of Jackie and Lynette, I thought was really important how you did that. And I even thought it was crucial how, you know, you thought you needed to add room detail to like excite the page, but then you took away from it because it was distracting. And the difference between her eyes in the final 2 was definitely really important.
Michael?
In your scene 2, the one with the triangle and the purple background,
Yeah.
did you say that you took the thought bubble, the connecting dots out because it felt a little bit more cluttered?
No, I actually took out like the bubble dots, because like I felt also like that is kind of cartoonish looking. And so I felt like it was more appropriate in a way just to have it like fading in the background, even though it wasn't necessarily like a fade, but.
Why don't you select that one
Yeah.
and then hit the presentation mode so we can look at it a little larger for a moment? Because there are a couple other things that I think you
Okay.
need to consider there.
Alright.
Anybody else see them?
The circle does look like a window, like she's looking in over them.
Mm-hmm.
Alright.
What you might want to do is if you're going to have the mother as the background figure there, is first of all consider just making her a background figure, or if you want to keep the oval, I think I'd turn it the other direction. And you don't want it to run into where it says final 2 anyway.
Yeah.
So move that oval around,
Alright.
okay? So that it's the other direction and size it enough that you can put her in there with her wonderful feathers, etc. By the way, who is Salome? This is a biblical character, or it's developed in literature from the Bible. Who is Salome? The character has to do with John the Baptist. I'll need to look up who Salome is and give you a different spin on what some of you are thinking.
Right.
Anyway, the other thing that I have a little problem with is the juxtaposition of the points of those arrows. I think it's just, you want to change the composition of this a little bit. So aside from spinning or repositioning the oval behind Salome, what would we do for this?
I think you could play with the eyes of Rosalie a little bit more. Eyes show a lot of emotion, and if she's thinking about her mother, if you shift them to almost like looking back and like thinking, it'll convey it a little bit more.
I think compositionally, you might just have to move the characters or the triangular around, where she was saying, it's kind of that uneasy tension between the character and the window right on her right side.
Right.
I think once you move Salome, you might also consider whether or not you want her to be in a white background or how you might want to make a change there. But I think you don't want to get some of these lines that are almost pointing to something and really pointing to nothing in the corners of those triangles there. You might try some resizing of the main character. Or what other suggestions? Come on, let's think and offer some help.
It's similar to your final first scene, but instead of keeping her in this shape in the background, you could have her as the shadow of her daughter. So like the influences of her are her mother's. And so you could do that instead of having her just floating in the top of the shape.
If you do decide to keep her mother in that corner, possibly making the triangle smaller because it's really heavy on the right side It especially feels heavy because the background is purple in the triangle and the background is white in the oval. So maybe shrinking the triangle a little bit or resizing the oval a little bit to kind of balance it out. And then also with the top triangle on Rosalie and the purple triangle, when the corners don't touch, they're kind of like overlapping, that it makes some sort of parallel line that is very distracting to the eye. So just kind of resizing that triangle.
I was thinking maybe putting Rosaline in front of her mom, because like you said, she's always like thinking of her mom, so her mom's always like back in her mind.
Okay.
And then with Lynette, maybe since like your first scene you made her purple, maybe you could keep her purple throughout the whole entire scenes.
Okay, you wanna put us back in slide sort of review for a minute and see if anybody has some other suggestions here?
Nico.
This is not really a question, but I appreciate the shadow in the first final scene. You didn't even have to explain it really to me. I got it right away with the communistic red and stuff, so I really appreciate what you did there.
Evan.
Sorry, the voice is like gone. Looking at all your slides, you have like a lot, like all of them have a black background.
Mhm.
I think you could have tried to play with like maybe the white as like a dominant color instead of the black. Just because I think like when you do that, you limit yourself to just a black background, and then you only have 3 colors to work with on that black with that black background. Whereas if you had a white background, then you have 3 colors that you can play with that you haven't used before. So just a suggestion moving forward, that might be something you want to work with.
I was gonna ask, is there a reason why you had a black background?
I don't know, I kind of just like the black background, because like to me, whenever I think of like something that's like black, especially like it conveys more of a nighttime scene, or like even if it's not even nighttime, it's just kind of more like shadowy, and so like you're kind of questioning like what's really going on here. And so for me, like that was kind of my justification, besides it just looked nice, was that it kind of kept like the overbearing kind of sense of mystery going on, just to like kind of justify it.
Yeah, and I wanted to say before we get done is that Michael asked me about could he do the fourth scene, and I thought with the nature of this that it did make sense to do that, so that I approved that to begin with. I should have said that before. I think in that last scene, it's also possible that you don't really need to have such a broad band separating the two. You could make one kind of background to the other or something like that. And just maybe work on the composition, the order of the slides a little bit there, because I think there's some very good ideas going.